Stop. Well, folks, the time has come. The much requested
Swami.
Who am I? I don't know. Do you? Let's find out what the Mandukya Upanishad says about it.
Oh man.
This is gonna be some technical. We got a blackboard.
Oh boy. Yeah.
This might get a little logical.
A little scary.
I think we can't. I think we just gotta go.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No turning back.
No.
Hit the space bar.
Yeah. No.
Good evening,
Oh boy.
and I'm back again, this time with a very different subject. The subject today,
Pause. Why?
Wow.
Quick pause. Why orange?
Oh.
Do you guys know
Good question.
why this
Yes.
color orange
Yes.
that all of these holy beings are rocking?
Great question. Yeah. Reminds me of Avatar.
Yes. Oh, the airbenders.
is this most ancient of questions. Who am I? And we will investigate this subject, this question, in the light of the Upanishads. Vedanta is basically the teachings of the Upanishads. Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam. The definition of Vedanta is the philosophy based on the teachings of the Upanishads is Vedanta. I think most of you are familiar to some extent with Vedanta and the Upanishads. The Upanishads present the highest philosophical teachings of the Vedas. They are among the most ancient texts known to mankind.
Wow.
There is a long list of Upanishads. In fact, in one of the Upanishads called Muktika Upanishad, we find a list of 108 Upanishads. But among all of these Upanishads, there are some 10 or 11 major, within quotes, major Upanishads. Major, why major? Because Adi Shankaracharya, some 1200 or 1300 years ago, chose these Upanishads to write his commentaries, Bhashyam, on these Upanishads. And these Upanishads basically have become the central texts of Vedanta. So the Vedanta movement you see all over the world, these Upanishads have become the source texts. Shankaracharya interpreted these Upanishads in a non-dualistic fashion, so his teaching is called Advaita Vedanta. That is the context in which we will be discussing all this today. Among all the Upanishads, especially among these major Upanishads, there is one Upanishad which is regarded, which is the smallest of all the Upanishads and also regarded as the toughest, and that is called the Mandukya Upanishad. There is a saying that
Is that the one we're about to learn about?
The hardest.
The hardest.
I'm ready for it.
Okay, so we have hundreds of Upanishads,
Okay, yes.
which are philosophical texts.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a certain yogi who did the comments on 11 to 13, did he say?
10 to 11.
10 to 11
Yep.
of them. Okay.
All right. Got that squared away.
Mumukshunam Vimuktaye Mandukyam Ekameva Alam. For the liberation of those who want spiritual enlightenment, Mumukshu, those who want mukti. For them, the Mandukya Upanishad alone is sufficient. So if you read this Upanishad and you are lucky enough to understand what it means and realize what it means as a living reality in your own life, you are free. You don't need anything else. So for liberation, the Mandukya itself is sufficient for those who want liberation, for those who want moksha or spiritual enlightenment.
It's so interesting that it's called liberation. Like, you hear the word liberation,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's just like a word enlightenment, you know? It's just so vague.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
and maybe that's the point of it. And I feel like indeed that is the point of it, because you're just using these concepts to point at a state of being.
I like self-realization.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Because that's a good way to describe it. It's like self-realization that might lead to freedom. A state of freedom.
Yeah.
But I hear you. I hear you.
It is the smallest Upanishad. The only 12 mantras are there in this Upanishad. It is found in the Atharva Veda. You all know that there are 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda. In the Atharva Veda you find this Upanishad. Among other Upanishads you find this Mandukya Upanishad.
Okay, so the Vedas are made up of Upanishads. This is like...
Okay.
Only 12 mantras. So it's like a small chili which is very hot. Sometimes in Bengali they say dhani lanka. A small chili which is very hot. In this Mandukya Upanishad, the most important mantra, the central text is what you have in your hands now, the handout. The 7th mantra. The 7th mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad. This is in fact the core mantra of the entire Upanishad, of these 12 mantras. And this gives a direct answer, the highest possible answer that you can find in our scriptures, in Vedanta. And I have not found any more sophisticated, more profound answer in any of the literatures of the world religions or philosophies which I have come across at least. At least I have not found myself, nor has anybody reported anything more profound than this.
He strikes me as someone who's really done the ringer as well.
Yeah.
You know.
The Mandukya Upanishad was commented upon by Gaudapada Acharya. Gaudapada Acharya is the guru of Shankaracharya's guru. So Gaudapada Acharya's disciple was Govindapada, and Govindapada's disciple was Shankaracharya, Adi Shankaracharya. So in Uttarakhand, in Himalayas, they say guru or dada guru, grandfather, like that, grand guru. So Shankara's guru's guru was Gaudapada Acharya, and he wrote verses on the Mandukya Upanishad. These verses are called Mandukya Karika. So nowadays when you look at the Mandukya Upanishad, you usually find them in a book called Mandukya Karika. It includes the Mandukya Upanishad plus Gaudapada Acharya's commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad in the form of verses called Karika, plus Shankaracharya's commentary in prose, in Sanskrit prose, on the original Upanishad as well as the Karikas of Gaudapada Acharya. So this is the book, Mandukya Karika. It has 4 chapters. The first chapter incorporates the Mandukya Upanishad, the original text, as well as certain commentaries given by Gaudapada Acharya. And this mantra is found in the first chapter, in the Upanishad itself. It's the 7th mantra. We will come back to this at the end of the talk. When I learned communication long way back before I joined the order, my communication teacher told me, you should start all talks with a story. So, I'll start this talk with a story. About 10 years ago, in the Himalayas...
This guy's like a yogic nerd.
Yes. There were a couple of things that he said earlier where he'd giggle after, and I'm like, I would only giggle that way on something that I've gone just stupid deep on.
Yeah.
And I'm like the only one who cares that much about the thing.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Yogic nerd is good.
Yogic
I like
nerd.
that.
Approved.
Yes, in the high Himalayas in Gangotri. I was staying there for about a month, just like a traditional monk. No ashrama, no school, college, Ramakrishna Mission, nothing. Just staying in a log cabin, begging for my food in the Anna Kshetra, and meditating and studying. And staying in log cabin means not like this. There's no electricity, no furniture, nothing. Just rajai, kambal. On the ground there is a blanket, and 2 or 3 blankets you can put on yourself. And it's so dark in there at this time because you cannot go out. It's very cold and dark outside. Nowadays they have electricity, but nowadays they even have mobile phones. They have put up a tower nearby, so you can signal there. I saw that happening, by the way. Anyhow, at that time it was so dark. At this time in the cabin it would be so dark that if I wave my eyes to wave my hands before my eyes, and I could not make out whether my eyes are open or closed. You cannot see anything.
Whoa.
Only sometimes you can see sparks jumping out of your woolen clothes in static electricity from the kambal to your sweater. But anyway, so that was the situation. One day after Bhiksha, I was taking a walk with some of the monks there with whom I had made friends. And this monk, he told me a story.
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right.
Story. So you can see the setting in the Himalayan through the forest tracks. Deodar trees are there, pine trees also, and you go through that. You're taking a walk around 4:30 or 5. Dinner is at 4 o'clock, so because afterwards it's too dark afterwards. And this monk told me a story. The story goes like this: Raja Janak Raja. One day he was asleep, very peacefully sleeping, and suddenly the sentry came running and said, I'll use mixture of Hindi and English, but I'll translate into English also, because the story was told to me in Hindi. Maharaj ji, uthiye, get up, what happened? The enemy has attacked, we must fight a war. So Janak Raja immediately got up, summoned his generals and his soldiers, and he went off to battle, put on his armor and sword and everything, took his sword and everything, and went off to battle. And there was a fierce battle in which Janak Raja was defeated. He was wounded, he was captured by the enemy, dragged before the enemy king, and the enemy king said, Tumhara rajya ab hamara rajya hai. I have captured your kingdom. Now I will not kill you because you are a king, I will exile you. You get out of this kingdom, it's mine now. What could poor Janak Raja do? He was tired and exhausted and bleeding and depressed. Somehow he started walking, and people in what was his own capital earlier, they refused to give him water or food because they were afraid. They said, the new king is very cruel. If they know we have helped you, he will punish us. After walking for 2 days, he came to the border of his kingdom. Then he crossed the border to the next kingdom, and he found food was being served to poor people, beggars. So there was a long line, and I think they were serving rice or khichdi or something, and a big handa was there. So he joined that line, and as he advanced in the queue, when he came up to the place where it was being served, at that time it was finished, no more food. And he could not take it anymore, he was feeling terribly depressed and tired and exhausted and in pain. And the person who was giving food, he said, just this starch which is lying at the bottom of the handa, that is there, I'll give it to you if you want it. He said, okay, give me that. And he gave him a bowl, filled that starch in there, and gave it to him. Before he could lift it, trembling to his lips, a kite, cheel, was circling up there. It dived and hit that bowl, knocked it out of his hands, and the bowl went rolling in the dust, and whatever was there was spilled in the dust, and Janak Raja could not take it anymore. He was so overcome with misery and sadness, he fell down on the ground. Ha ha kar karte hue, as he said. The sadhu, ha ha kar karte hue. Ha ha kar in Sanskrit, ha kar, Hindi ha kar, not English ha ha. So it means just the opposite. And when he was crying, alas, suddenly he heard a voice, Maharaj ji, kya hua? What happened? Sir? And he woke up, his chest pounding, covered in sweat, sitting on the bed. And the sentry has come, Maharaj, you shouted. What happened? So it was a dream. The whole thing was a dream, a nightmare. Nothing has happened. But because Janak Raja was very, he had a very analytical mind. So he looked up and he said, Wo sach ya ye sach? Is that true or is this true? Is that dream true or is this waking world, is it true? Wo sach ya ye sach? Sentry was taken aback. What is this? He called the minister. Sir, what is wrong? Wo sach ya ye sach? He called the queen. The queen thought, this old man, what has happened to you? His wife came, what happened to you? Wo sach ya ye sach? There's only one thing he's saying. Wo sach ya ye sach? Nobody could understand this. Next day in the morning, in the marketplace, it's already big problems. People are talking hush hush, and Ashtavakra Muni, the great Jnani, he has come to the city, and he heard this is what is happening. Now he was a Jnani, so he knew what has happened. He decided, I will go and visit Janak Raja, and he went to the court, and he asked Janak Raja, kaise hain Maharaj ji, how are you? And Raja said, wo sach hai, ye sach. That's what he's doing all day, sitting in the court, surrounded by the queen and the ministers and the army and the generals and everything. And I'm sort of imagining, this is not part of the story, but I'm imagining, the officers coming with files, please sign, wo sach ya ye sach. No work is getting done. When he said this to Ashtavakra Muni, same thing, wo sach ya ye sach. Now Ashtavakra Muni knows what he is referring to. So he said, Janak Raja, when you were rolling in the dust, bleeding, tired, defeated, depressed, crying on the ground, what he is referring to only Janak Raja knows and he knows. Nobody else understands. What is this defeat and all this? Whoa. At that time, was all this there? Your power, your wealth, your queen, your generals, your minister, all these things were there or not? Janak Raja said, no. None of this was there. Only defeat and depression and sadness and misery. And now you are sitting here in the court, surrounded by your courtiers and all this power and wealth. That defeat, that depression, those wounds, that terrible situation, is it here? The king said, no, it's not here. Na, yahan to nahi hai wo. Then Ashtavakra Muni said, to Raja, na ye sach, na wo sach. Neither this is true, nor that is true. This was not there in that terrible dream. And today you are in this situation, you are calling it a dream, that is not here. Then Janak Raja was shocked. The next question which would come to all of us, he's saying, to kuch bhi sach nahi, is nothing true then? Then the Muni said, jab wo aap wahan par the, on that battlefield, on that place where you are rolling in the dust, defeated, crying, were you there or not? Tab wahan aap the ya nahi? Did you see that or not? Yes, I was there. I saw that. That may be false, but I have experienced it. It may be false. I woke up and I say it is false, but I have experienced it. Or idhar up, where you are now sitting in the court, idhar bhi aap hai ki nahi? Are you sitting here and experiencing this or not? He says, yes, I am experiencing it. To Raja, na ye sach, na wo sach, but tum hi sach. Neither that is true, nor this is true, but you the witness of both situations. You alone are the truth. This.
That's enough for me. That's enough. That's enough for me.
This is some classic Ramana Maharshi type teaching.
It's so interesting reflecting on the fact that like dreams were the thing that started. Like after I had my first lucid dream where I was like really, really awake during a dream. But it didn't even start. It started just having like very vivid dreams and having this feeling of like, how do I know which one's real? And then it's like a lucid dream is just kind of the next step of that where you're like, I am consciously acting. I can think about the fact that I am asleep.
Wow.
Like I know that my body is just laying there and I'm going to be back there. And it's like, those types of things were just what started this whole entire thing for me. And it's so interesting now coming to teachings like this. And it's like, that's at the core of the teaching.
Incredible.
Is like those types of sparks.
That process is one of my favorites. It's been happening to me a decent amount where something happens to you, you come to something, you experience something, you do something, and it feels like the truth. And then you hear a teacher very soon after say the same thing. And it's like after a while I've been learning to not, or at least try to not need that validation from a teacher.
Yeah.
Though it is still quite nice.
Yeah.
To hear that after you experience something.
I mean, it's just cool because then you know that it's like, this has been a shared experience of humans.
For a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. It's incredible. It's incredible. I love the logic behind, like, I am not the body, I am not the mind. Where you're going into, like, there was the I that existed in the dream state, the waking state, the deep sleep state. And in the dream state, say you broke your arm. In your dream state and in your deep sleep state, you don't feel that. Which is incredible.
That you like did feel it in one state and not in the others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
then if you break it in waking reality, Wait, is that what you said, or do you say in dream?
No, in waking reality,
Okay,
you actually
yes,
break your
yeah.
arm, and that pain, the feeling of it is not there
Yeah.
in sleep. And then there's other times where you'll have some sort of pain on your body or some sort of sensation, and then you get so enveloped in doing something, and it feels like the pain isn't there, even though you're awake. And then you return to it, and you're like, oh gosh, hurts so
Yeah.
bad, even though it didn't hurt for the last 40 minutes.
Even just like needing to go to the bathroom, and you just like forget about
being
it.
hungry,
Yeah.
something like that. It's been showing me what the mind really does, what the brain really does, and what sort of manipulation you could have over it. You could have over it. Because you hear someone like Ramana Maharshi, he had surgery one time, like very intensive surgery without anesthesia, and seemingly was unchanged. So that's someone who can just tap into the state
That's so crazy.
at any time and not worry about it. You see, I don't know if you've seen that, I'll bring it up, the famous picture of the monk. This is one of the most moving pictures I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
The famous picture of the monk who was protesting the war in Vietnam and was lit on fire by one of his students and does not move. He is on fire, dying, and he is still in a calm-looking meditative position. That's the power of the mind.
That's the power of the thing behind
The
the
thing
mind.
behind the mind. You're right. You're exactly right.
Yeah, it's like the mind is a projection machine.
Yes.
But
yes.
And it just makes you think, because in like waking reality, or whatever we like to call it, it's like these things all feel physical or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and we have this idea of like what physicality is, and why I see a door there, why I see a microphone here.
Yeah.
Because light reflecting, whatever. But then in a dream, all of those things are physical too.
Yes.
And it's like, what am I looking at then?
Yes.
And then everyone's like, oh, well, at least the you know, the stuff that I like read into, a lot of the first things you hear from the psychological perspective from like psychologists is it's all made up by your brain in a dream. But it's like, if my dream can make a physical reality that is just as physical as this physical reality, then what the hell is physical reality?
Yeah.
It's just buggy.
And then even crazier when you think about the people who have found certain answers to those questions, and it seems as though they have that waking up moment, and like in a lucid dream that you talk about, I've never had that experience where you can manipulate things going on. It's as if a similar process happens here, and there's just things that you just all of a sudden know the mechanics of, and so you can manipulate it. Whereas to us, that's like not possible, not even conceivable.
There was this line in we watched like a Yogananda documentary the other day,
Incredible. Yeah.
and this line has been messing with me.
It was called Awake.
Yes, but the line is just, I recognize that this world is just light and shadow, and that shadow is also just light.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Go, are we gonna keep rolling?
I think so.
He's got me now. At the beginning
got
was
me now.
slow,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we were
yeah.
building the foundations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We needed to stick with it.
Yeah.
That's how it was.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Story. The rest of the lecture, we are going to struggle with this concept and try to understand what is the meaning of this story.
The fun part is over.
The fun part is over. They're like,
Hard philosophy.
we're like, we're with you now. That was a fun story.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah? No. Let me get to the chalkboard now.
Yeah.